My name is Jen, and I've been teaching myself how to make stained glass at home. And I knew going into this that I was going to start filming my progress, so I thought it would be kind of fun to go back to some of my earlier projects and talk about what I've learned. And I'm just going to jump right into it because I'm sure if you're watching this video, you can see that I just kind of poured the flux onto my actual stained glass, which was a terrible decision. One thing that I've learned is to put your flux into some sort of plastic cup. I use these little shot glasses that are really inexpensive, pour some in there, and use a paintbrush or something similar to kind of wipe it on there instead. If you're just pouring it on there like I did, you're going to have too much flux in certain areas, not enough in the rest of it. And honestly, I'm still learning the proper amount of flux that you really want, and I think it's different for every project, how long it sits out, how long the air kind of gets to it. I have gotten better at it, but I'm still kind of learning what the proper amount really is and how to learn when you need more, when you need less. And when you hear that sizzling sound in the background, I'm pretty sure that means there's too much flux. It's actually kind of easy to tell when you need more flux because your solder won't actually stick to, in this case, the copper foil. And now that I've gotten that elephant out of the room, I want to talk about the actual pattern that I used and then my actual soldering. And see, I told you, I just kind of poured it on there. Don't do that if you're just learning. It is not the route to go. I was just so excited to actually be learning how to solder. I actually want to take a moment to kind of acknowledge the pattern itself. I bought this, as you can see, it's from the Walnut Coffee. I think I got it off of Etsy, if I'm remembering correctly, and I was so excited to just not have to deal with learning how to make patterns because this was only my third stained glass piece. So I really wanted to focus on the actual creating the stained glass where I could practice my cutting and soldering and foiling and all of that good stuff. And I decided I was just going to support a small business, grab a pattern, and it was a horrible decision. And this actually came with two different patterns, the pig that you see in this video as well as a cow, and I had no issues with the cow whatsoever, but the pig, I am convinced that they just used AI to make this because whoever created it had never used stained glass before or made something in stained glass before. In the original pattern, there's absolutely no way to cut out the nose, and I thought maybe, okay, I'm just missing something, I'm not fully understanding something. All of those lines that you see around the face didn't exist. I had to create those, and a couple of them were accidents, but because I had to create those lines to get to the nose, it kind of just blended in well, so it worked in my favor anyway. And this was the pattern that I had decided I was probably never going to buy a pattern again, which really stinks because I do like to support other small businesses, but it's not worth the risk for me to not realize what details I really need to be paying attention to in order for my pattern to actually turn out. So even if you had a saw to cut this out or cut the nose out, there wasn't a line that actually existed in the pattern for it to connect to the face, basically. And if anybody is watching this at any point and they think, well, you probably just had to attach the nose via like soldering copper on the other side, maybe that initial face was just one piece and the nose was another piece. But there were no instructions, no advice on how to do that, no suggestions that that was what was supposed to happen. I am just convinced this was all AI or the person making it had never made stained glass before. Aside from the actual pattern, one thing that I was also learning during this time was when they talk about your glass and the patterns within that glass, kind of facing them the same direction or making sure you're using them in the way that's going to fit your pattern best. That was something that I am still struggling with currently as I'm filming this, but during the pig, I just didn't even care about it. I was just so excited to finally try it. I borrowed some glass, or I guess I should say I took some glass from a friend of mine because I didn't have pink on hand and I really wanted to make this pig. So for this specific project, I was definitely more focused on saving the glass versus making sure that the pieces fit a certain way or we're going in a different direction or a certain direction. But as I continue my journey with stained glass, I am definitely understanding the importance of that and kind of paying attention to all of those small details. There are so many details when it comes to making stained glass. Okay, let's finally talk about the soldering because I am sure that it drives people mad watching this. This pig is only my third stained glass project ever, my second doing the copper foil method. So soldering was just something that I watched videos on. The cow was my very first project ever. I had no idea what I was doing, and honestly, I thought that if the solder was a thinner layer, it would look better, which I have learned that is not the case at all. But not only that, I guess this is called tinning. What I was actually doing, I had no idea. But in addition to the solder needing sort of that beveled look, it also provides more security for your actual piece so that it's not going to fall apart as easily. Another really big lesson that I learned during this one, which is so triggering even for me to watch back, is that when you're pulling up the tape, you have to be more careful with it because some of your copper foil, if it's not attached properly, will come off, and that is not a good thing. But as you'll see, I had absolutely no idea when I was doing this. And honestly, I kind of thought, okay, you could just stick this back on, it'll stick on fine, no worries. That is not the case. If something like this happens, you have to refoil it or reattach it more securely, wash off the flux, figure it out because it will not stick. And soldering can hide a lot of imperfections, but if there's nothing for the solders to stick to, it can't actually hide anything. You are going to see every cut in your foil. You are going to see every tear that happens. You will see every imperfection if you don't fix that foil. And it's not just about the way it looks. If you have those breaks in your foil, you're going to have weak spots in your glass, and that's going to cause it to fall apart eventually. Another thing that I really struggled with during this was learning that the copper foil, if there's too much heat on it, it's going to pull up. And I think that a lot of it had to do with me not foiling properly because I didn't know what I was doing or the importance of making sure it was really stuck to that glass. And because at this point I had no idea about hooks or that you were really supposed to make the pattern so that you had somewhere to hang them, I didn't even think about it. All that I did was kind of tin the edges, not knowing there were other options available. Since doing this pig, I have learned about overcame, using that around the edges for these sun catcher styles, and that has been just a game changer when it comes to the overall look of them. But I'm still not at the point where I'm comfortable not copper foiling the edges, the edge pieces of each pattern. So I still do all my copper foiling all together, and then at the end I will go through and scrape off the end pieces with an X-Acto knife. Adding the tail was something completely new to me as well. I had no idea what I was doing. I have learned so much since this point. I still don't have really, I mean, as you can see, there it comes again, just pouring the flux on. I still don't have a jig set up so that I can attach things like a pigtail on here. I have learned a lot since then, including using gravity to my advantage. I didn't really know what to do because a lot of people talked about getting tinned copper already pre-made, but I honestly don't know that I'll ever actually do that, especially when it comes to making hooks. I don't mind the process of actually having to tin the copper, even though it's a little bit tedious, but I would really like to learn more about how to set it up so that the tail or any piece that you were attaching didn't consistently fall off. I do know that you have to lower your temperature on your actual soldering iron, so I do question if maybe that would have gone a little bit easier, but even this, like my brain just wasn't comprehending not to touch that metal because it gets extremely hot. I mean, give me some grace. This was my third piece, my second piece really ever making stained glass. I've since invested in like the heat resistant gloves and gotten a little bit better with just common sense. I know it sounds like it should be obvious, but it is not when it comes to my brain. Because I used copper patina in my very first project, which was a cow, and I did not know how to properly kind of prepare my piece for that, it turned out terribly, absolutely terribly. And so I wanted to keep this one silver, but I didn't know at this time that there were also processes that you needed to do in order to kind of shine it up and make sure that it stayed that beautiful shiny silver. So I ended up just not doing anything. I've since learned that you should wax it, use the magic eraser. There are so many little details that need to go into it, but bless my friend's heart, she accepted this gift. Even though it looks so, so terrible, it was an homage to her pig that she just recently got. But at the time, I really thought I had done such a good job with this one, and I still love it because it was something that I never thought I was going to be able to do, and it was something that I did on my own, kind of just learning as I went. I have no idea where she actually stuck this thing. It is probably in a box somewhere, but she accepted it gracefully, so that's all that really matters. And here you have it, the pig in its glorious, imperfected beauty. I absolutely love it because it's something that I accomplished, but overall learned a ton with this one.